Alright, in this video, I want to talk about when the biblical day begins. Now, I was reading the scriptures with a preconceived idea that the day starts right here, right at evening when the sun is setting and it becomes dark. This is the start of the day, biblically speaking, and it goes on and goes through here, and then here's the end of the day and the start of the next day. That's how I would see it. But after this new information has been brought to my attention, I realized I never really thought about it. I just went with the first explanation given to me, and I've been looking through the Bible with that lens, that the day actually starts with the evening. And I've come to realize that I'm wrong. You see, I'm going to start here by getting into why I believe this is where it started. And I'm going to show you some scriptures that got me to start thinking, but I wasn't quite saying, yeah, this is a change, this is wrong and this other way is right. And then I started reading through this and I started to see the day doesn't start right here. It can't. And that's what I want to show you through the scriptures. So let's get into this here. In Genesis, we read about the 6 days of creation, right? And every time God creates something, he says, and the evening and the morning were the first day, and the evening and the morning were the second day, and the third day, and so on and so forth. He always says the evening and the morning. So you get the idea that from evening to morning, the first day. And I just went with that. Oh, okay, so the day starts in the evening. Except if you take this as it stands, it's saying that the day is from sunset until sunrise, so the whole night is the first day. Because it says, an evening and the morning were the first day. It doesn't say the evening to evening was the first day. Now does it? So it makes you rethink about what is this saying? And I'm not gonna get into that here, but it got me thinking because I was like, hey, wait, I just assumed I was looking at this with a lens. I wasn't looking at it as it is. And then I realized before God even started talking about creation, the days, the evening and the morning, the first day and what have you, it says here, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So here God refers to the light first and then the night. And I was thinking, that makes sense, even though it says that there was darkness upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water. So it seems like darkness was there first, except you got to realize that God is eternal and God is light. So light comes first. So it makes sense that the day is the beginning of the day. And by day, I mean the light. As God says here, and God called the light day. And then it made me think a little bit here, where it says, and on the seventh day, God ended his work. So it says at the day, we read the chapter before that God called the light day. So he rested on the light portion, right? And so, I was thinking about this. And the reason why I was thinking about this and re-evaluating what I thought is because of these passages I'm going to get into up until Acts over here. So, in Nehemiah chapter 3, now a lot of these don't really change your mind, but they get you thinking. Nehemiah chapter 3 at verse 19, it says, and next to him repaired Ezra the son of Jeshua, the ruler of Mizpah. Okay, I think I grabbed the wrong verse here. Let me see here. 3. Was it 16? Man, I can't read my own handwriting over here. That's unfortunate. Let's see if I can just find where I want to read anyway. This is not a book that I'm familiar with. Man, I might have to skip this one over. I'm gonna have to come back to this. Put it in the info box. So check out the info box. I will put the actual verse in here. I'm pretty sure this is the right chapter. I'm not sure what I got mixed up with, but I think I wrote down the wrong verse. And I don't feel like going through this whole chapter, and I'm pretty sure you appreciate that, to find what I wanted to get into. But what I wanted to get into is about how they close the doors at nighttime so that nobody would come in the next day for the Sabbath. Because it says at night they were going to close the doors so that no merchants and whatnot would come into the city of Jerusalem. And the next day was the Sabbath. So it's telling you that that night before the Sabbath was not the Sabbath, because they were doing the work of closing the doors and making sure no one would come in. And it says that night that the next day was the Sabbath. So it's giving you the clue that, hey, when the sun comes up, that's the start of the day, which makes a whole lot of sense when I'm thinking about it. Because when God returns to establish the millennium kingdom, he's coming in his glory, which is light, and he's raising the dead. Right? You're waking from sleep. And that's what you do in the morning. When the sun comes up, you awake from your sleep. You don't start the day going to sleep. No. So, all of this started to make sense. So if you want, you can pause this and read through this, or go read through Nehemiah chapter 3 yourself. Or you can wait for the info box, because maybe I just put the wrong chapter and it's the right verse, number 19, and I just mixed this up. But I will correct this. Sorry about that. That's a bad way to get into this, but what are you going to do? Alright, in Genesis chapter 19, at verse 33, it says here, "And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow," which is tomorrow, "that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father." All right, the rest I don't need to get into, but the key here is that they're in the daylight portion, and they say, yesternight or last night I went in with father. You do the same this night or tonight. So you can see here that they refer to the night portion of the 24-day light darkness cycle as the end of the day, not the beginning of the day. And we refer to that the same way in our day and time, right? The day starts and it ends at when we go to bed. And, that night, even if we don't go to bed, is still considered part of this day. Even though we do put in the whole midnight thing, oh, the day changes at midnight, that doesn't really make too much sense. But it's basically this same mindset here. Over here in Exodus chapter 32, at verse 5, it says, "And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early on the morrow, and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. So they did all this, and they considered the night as the end of that day, because he says tomorrow is the day of the feast, and they don't do it at the night, they do it in the morning. You see that? They rose up in the morning to start this feast. They didn't rise up as soon as the sun went down to do this feast. And then over here in Judges chapter 19 at verse 26, it says, Then came the woman in the dawning of the day and fell down at the door of the man's house where her Lord was till it was light. So we see here that the day starts in the morning, because it says the dawning of the day. The day is about to start before the light shows up. So it's giving the opposite impression of what a lot of people teach, is that the day starts as the light is ending and the darkness is coming. Right? Like I said, this stuff gets you thinking. It doesn't necessarily solidify this. But it's this next section that really solidifies this to be true. In Joshua chapter 6 at verse 15, And it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day, and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only that day they can pass the city 7 times. So here it says, as the 7th day came to pass, they rose up early at the dawning of the day. So the day is starting in the morning. Early. See? So we get that same impression here. And I know some of these things you might say, oh, they're saying the day because it's the start of the light portion. It's not the start of the actual 24-hour period, as the night is included. And I get why you would say that. And that's the same mindset I was having when I was reading this. And I was like, this is not super convincing. And over here in Acts chapter 20, at verse 7, it says, And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. So it's not tomorrow yet, even at midnight. The first day of the week, he's still preaching into the night. It's not considered tomorrow, even though the sun went down. And there were many lights in the upper chamber where they were gathered together, and there sat in the window a certain young man named Eutychus, being falling into a deep sleep, and as Paul was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep, and fell down from the 3rd loft, and was taken up dead. And Paul went down and fell on him, and embraced him. Trouble not yourselves, for his life is in him. When he therefore come up again, and had broken bread and eaten, and talked a long time, until break of day, so he departed. So here we get a little bit of the piece here that the day doesn't start until the sun is coming up, which makes perfect sense, right? But this again is not convincing. It's not until we get into the actual Gospels where this all makes sense and it actually unfolds here. In Matthew chapter 28 verse 1, it says, In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. This one hit me. I was like, wait, there's something to this. All of these verses make sense in the way that I'm saying it because of this right here alone. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn to the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. And as we connect all the Gospels, it says Mary came to the sepulchre Sunday morning, right when it was dawning. The sun was coming up. And that's when it says the Sabbath is ending at the dawning of the first day. And the Sabbath should have ended as the sun set previously if the day started evening to evening. So this right here alone disproves that. But we're going to add more witnesses to this. John chapter 20, verse 19. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst and said unto them, Peace be unto you. So here we see, then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week. So here we get an understanding in Acts, the first day of the week, even when evening was come. It sounds like the same word over and over, that it is still part of the first day of the week. Right? It's still the first day. It's like, oh, it's not the start. It doesn't say then the next day as evening started. It says the same day at evening, being the first day of the week. So that's what we see here. We don't see that this is evening and then next morning is the first day of the week. They're already in the first day of the week, and evening that follows is part of that. And then over here in Mark chapter 4, at verse 35, it says, In the same day when the evening was come, he saith unto them, Let us pass over unto the other side. So we see here, in the same day when evening was come, he saith unto them. So again, it connects the evening that follows the day as part of the same 24-hour cycle. Luke chapter 23 at verse 53. There's actually quite a bit in here. It says here, And he took it down and wrapped it in linen and laid it in a sepulchre that was hewn in stone, wherein never man before was laid. And that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on. And the women also which came with him from Galilee followed after, and beheld the sepulchre, and how his body was laid. And they returned and prepared spices and ointments, and rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment. So here we get an idea of when Jesus was taken off the cross. He's being put in the sepulchre, and they go in and they're examining all this, and the stone is going to be put over him. All this is work being done as they leave at night, prepare spices, and then they rest the Sabbath day. We're going to see that all this happens when the sun is already down. They're doing work because it's still part of the preparation day of Passover for the first day of unleavened bread, which is also the weekly Sabbath. I'll paint more of a picture here in Matthew chapter 27 at verse 57. When the even was come, there came a rich man of Arimathea named Joseph, who also himself was Jesus' disciple. He went to Pilate and begged the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded the body to be delivered. And when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in clean linen cloth, and he laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out in a rock. And he rolled a great stone to the door of the sepulchre, and departed. And there was Mary Magdalene, and the other Mary sitting over against the sepulchre. And then over here in Mark chapter 15, verse 42. And now when the even was come, because it was the preparation, that is the day before the Sabbath. See, it's calling evening the day before the Sabbath. Joseph of Arimathea, an honorable counselor, which also waited for the kingdom of God, came and went boldly in unto Pilate and craved the body of Jesus. So if we take this as it stands, Jesus gave up the ghost and died as the sun is setting. And they want to take care of his body, which is going to take some work before the Sabbath. And it's not as if they have minutes to do this because the sun is setting, or an hour to do this. They have the night. As you're going to see, they're going to need the night because Jesus gives up the ghost. And there's crowds going on here, right? We already know that Pilate is probably doing some stuff, and he wants to probably pack up the day and go home and go to bed anyway, right? So Arimathea goes to Pilate, and he wants to take counsel with him. And this is not going to be instantaneous. So he's at the cross. He has to travel to Pilate's office, and it's not as if he instantaneously gets to talk to Pilate. You ever had to talk to a governor, a mayor, any kind of bureaucrat? You don't get instant access. So he not only does he have to travel there, he has to wait to get audience with him. Then when he talks to him, it says that he begged the body of Jesus. So it's not as if he just said, "Hey, can I take care of the body of Jesus?" Pilate was probably like, "Why are you bothering me with this?" So he had to beg him. So that takes some time as well to say, "Hey, please let me do this." And we read also that Pilate was like, "He's dead already?" So he has to send a messenger to go to the cross to see if Jesus is actually dead. So that takes some time. So the sun is already, down here. And then that fella has to come back and tell Pilate that he's dead. Then Pilate has to tell Joseph, "Okay, you can have his body." Now Joseph has to travel back to the cross, which takes time. Then after he does that, what does he got to do? He has to take his body down from the cross. So either you got to dig up the cross and gently put it down, you got to get some ladders and then take him down gently. You got to, which I don't imagine they did, is hack the cross down with an axe or a saw. They did something to get Jesus off from the cross. So that takes some time. Then they have to do this delicately. You're not going to treat Jesus like just some dog, right? That you're going to go bury in the backyard. They want to take care of him. So they are not just willy-dilly about this. They're going to take their time and make sure he's all right, especially since not a bone of his is broken. So they take him down, they wrap him up, they then have to travel, it says not far, but they still got to travel to the sepulcher, and they prepare him. It doesn't say that Mary Magdalene and Mary actually did this. It actually says Nicodemus. I don't know if I brought up that scripture here. If it's not here, maybe it's Mark. This is not I'm not sure which one it is in which gospel off the top of my head, but what ends up happening, maybe I don't have John up here. Let me check John real quick. John 19:38 over here. Here we go. And there came also Nicodemus, which at the first came to Jesus by night and brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100-pound weight. So, you're not carrying that very easily, right? So he has people with him. They're bringing 100-pound weight of aloes and myrrh and whatnot, and they prepare Jesus' body before the stone is rolled in front of the sepulcher, which is also work, obviously, to move a heavy stone in front of the sepulcher. And and they as if they just slopped on some aloe onto Jesus and just covered him with a sheet and walked off. No, they took care of him. So this is something they did at the night, and that's why they were in a rush, because this takes time, and they wanted to do this in the night before the day actually dawned. So if this is the Sabbath, they would be breaking the Sabbath, but they're actually doing work before the Sabbath. And this changes how I saw things. And it makes sense in the videos that I made about the lunar calendar. Because when they would see the new moon, it was that night that they would see it, obviously, right? And that's when they would say the next day is the Sabbath. Not right then when they saw the new moon. because that night was part of the previous day. Because that night they could have been doing work, especially going out looking for the new moon, and then traveling to the Sanhedrin to verify that you saw the new moon. And then they would say the next day is the Sabbath. And by the next day, they don't mean, oh, the next evening. No, when daylight came up, that was the Sabbath, the new moon Sabbath, to start the new month. So that changes how that whole calendar works, and it shows Jesus actually raising from the dead, which seems to be, like people say, at the end of the Sabbath, but it was right before the dawning of the first day of the week. And we see this, like I brought up in other videos about the lunar Sabbath and what have you, trying to figure out the 3 days and the 3 nights, which I still don't quite grasp, because looking at the lunar calendar, Jesus was crucified on the 6th day of the week, on the 14th of the, what is it, Aviv, the first month, on Passover, and then he was put into the tomb in the night of the 14th. And then he was in the tomb for the whole Sabbath, the day and the night, and he rose sometime at the dawning of the first day of the week, which would be the 16th, the day of first fruits. And putting all this together, I don't quite grasp 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Something I'm going to have to look into more and ask God to clarify that for me, because I don't quite grasp it. But as it connects with the lunar calendar, as it connects with the day actually starting when the sun comes up, it all fits and makes sense and is clear. So, with that being said, we can see that this represents a day. The day starts here when the sun comes up, and it ends here as the sun starts to come up for the next day. It doesn't start at evening like some Seventh-day Adventists and other denominations think, and it doesn't start at midnight as we for some reason have it in our timekeeping. I don't know why we have it at midnight. Not sure why. Maybe because the day-night cycle, it's not always at 6 a.m. that the sun rises, so maybe they're just like, okay, let's just put midnight, that's when the day starts, because it fluctuates between like 5 and 7, depending where you are in the world when the sun actually rises, throughout the year anyway. So that might be why they just go, let's just say midnight. But biblically, it's when the sun rises, and when it starts to rise for the next day, that's the start of the next day. Because like here, let's just say this is a Tuesday. And then Tuesday night, we see the first slither of the moon. And we see it at about midnight. And we're like, all right, tell the Sanhedrin. And they're like, okay, do we put to death everybody who was working this night because they broke the Sabbath? No. It's the next day, which starts here, which is the Sabbath. Because imagine they say, okay, the next day is the Sabbath. And then the next day comes, and they're like, no, it starts here. Boom. Now the Sabbath starts. So you got this whole free day that didn't even matter. Right? So anyway, I hope that clarifies everything up, makes sense. Thanks for watching, and take care.